It all started on October 28, 1979, at 11:10 p.m. Eastern Time, almost 40 years ago. Northwestern Hospital on Keele Street in North York, Ontario, a suburb of Toronto, was teeming with activity. Traumas being brought in from the streets, burn victims, gunshot victims, and, of course, expectant mothers. It was a Sunday night, and my mum had been experiencing pain the day before at a flea market. But on this night, these pains would prove something else. They would ultimately prove a newborn son. A little baby boy had come out of my mum's womb. I was a seemingly healthy baby, weighing exactly 7 pounds. But there was one setback. When the doctors looked closely at my skin, they discovered it didn't look like the skin of other babies born in the ward. The skin had a yellowish hue to its texture, and later tests confirmed I had jaundice. My parents were beside themselves at the mere fact, and when the doctors told my mum she couldn't take me home that night, she left weeping. My father tried to comfort and console her, but she cried, thinking she had to have her son. It seemed she was losing him already, but not for long. I stayed in the hospital being monitored under an incubator for 13 days. Then my parents came to take me home to start learning the lessons of life. They already had a name picked out for me. We lived in a flat on the corner of Jane Street and Lawrence Avenue in Toronto's Weston area. At first, it seemed ordinary. Family, friends, and relatives would come to visit. They would come to visit us or see a concert. I had a little walker that I somehow managed to climb down the stairs with. All was going pretty ordinary until sometime after my first birthday. Along Lawrence Avenue near Jane is a strip of restaurants, shopping plazas, and furniture stores, or was rather back then anyway, complementing the suburbia of the late 70s and neon signs advertising used cars, donut diners, and more. Shortly after my parents bought me a plastic letter set, they noticed something different was being done with the letters. Words like ball, cat, or mom even, or daddy, weren't being spelled out. They were different words. Words like Dominion, McDonald's, Leon's, and Sears. All in all, my parents just thought I was very bright for my age, when most kids, at 1.5, can barely spell words like mum or any at all. They were amazed at what words could be spelled with the plastic letters. At 2, after my brother was born, I would endlessly line up all my 200 plus dinky cars in a singular line for hours. And if one got out of place, I'd throw a huge temper tantrum. Temper tantrums were frequent in our house after my first and second birthdays. If one plastic leather or one dinky toy got out of order, look out. I like to have my toys in order and in the right place at the right time. At first, my parents thought I was just exceptionally bright for my age. I could tell time when I was 2.5. And on my third birthday, I got a real non-digital watch. Even after we moved to our present city, my parents still didn't expect anything major. Again, they just thought I was really bright and observant, which I was. But when I started failing to play with kids my own age, they started to suspect something was wrong. My speech development was somewhat slower than my siblings later. And I was always a difficult sleeper, having to be rocked or walked to sleep on numerous occasions. During toddler years, my mom always felt I appeared to be nervous at times. I had developed a habit in which I would wave my hands, and my mom could feel my tension building up. I remember odd or eccentric behavior starting at 3, and in my preschool years, when I'd be walking in a mall or at a public place. I'd get a high out of touching ladies' nylons. I would see the brown nylons or stockings and literally walk up to a woman and feel her legs up. My mother would say, "Oh, don't mind him. I'm sorry. He just likes the feel of nylons." I would, while other kids were playing house, be feeling up the preschool coordinator's nylons. If I did that today, at 37, I know I'd probably get arrested. I started kindergarten in September of 1984. During that year, it was noted that I developed several unusual behavioral characteristics. I would hum and gesture to myself for no apparent reason. I also developed my hand movements where I would rub my index finger with my thumb, sometimes until it became raw. I did not want to join groups of children in the class, and at times would disrupt the class for no reason by laughing and singing. I also showed obsessive tendencies, wanting the exact cup, the exact color, and wanting to sit at a specific spot at the table. I did not like to play with any hand paints because it messed up my fingers, and aloneness was always what I preferred. Although I had a warm interaction with my parents, sometimes, and I was always easy to discipline, I would keep myself amused for hours on end without requiring any input from the outside. In fact, I would play with one set of toys for many hours. Toys such as my letter and number set I acquired at the hospital for sick children. I'd sometimes play for up to 6 hours at a time or more. Finally, in January of 1985, I had psychological testing done showing I was behind in language and social skills. Here is the letter from the assessment. In grade 6, when I was 11, I was diagnosed as having a learning disability, especially in the area of organization. Mr. Landry was my new teacher, and Mr. Tuck came in to teach us math. But I was failing in other areas as well. I was the class clown, and some of my subjects were getting D's and C's at best. I knew what the lessons were about in school, but I did not get how you're supposed to live or what you're supposed to do outside of school. Even back then, I felt inadequate, and being the clown made me feel good. I thought, if I could make my peers laugh at least, then maybe I'm not so bad. That thought proved wrong, as I would be sent out of class numerous times to the office for clowning around or disrupting the class. The office soon became a regular spot for me. I thought I was being funny, but hence, were they really laughing with me or at my face? I knew I tried to be funny to hide all my inner demons. To hide my insecurities, I acted the class clown. Here was a kid who couldn't figure out how to ask to sleep over on a Friday night at somebody's house. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I would also try and figure out the purpose of having a stylish haircut. All my life, I've preferred the straight haircut. A mushroom cut or buzz cut just wouldn't suit me. I'd feel like a wonk in a different haircut. That would not be me. But what was I? 2 weeks before that grade 6 grad, I I asked a pretty girl in my class if she'd go to grad with me. Her name was Miranda. She just replied, "I'll have to see." At my grade 6 rather, grad school dance, she ended up going with a friend of mine. Inside I was crushed. I didn't know how or when to ask girls out. When I saw the two of them dancing in the gym, it only made my heart weaken all the more. Inside, I felt betrayed and dumped on. Betrayed by the friend who took her and dumped on by her. But, but, as the outside would prove, I turned on my clown act to deal with it. That was the only way I saw how to deal with a desperate situation, and a painful one at that, too. I went to the corner of the gym. Music was playing, and I started to dance with myself. Billy Idol puts it best in his song, "Only I was hugging myself and putting my own hands around my neck." I thought I'd turn the attention back to myself again, and boy, did I. The gym broke out in laughter. Again, I was to hide my insecurities under a blanket of humor. Maybe it wasn't so bad. I got a few laughs, a piece of the grad cake on the table, and most of all, I ended up dancing with a date after all. One of the other singles in the corner who were never asked by any of the guys. The expression in this photograph tells it all. My family took my picture, but I really wanted mostly to be with my friends, and moreover, especially, to be with Miranda. This letter was written in June of 1991 at the school I was attending, convening the reviewing of test results for my learning disability organization at the time, or so they thought. They did their best with the facilities available to them and the jargon of the times, the late 80s and early 90s. All my life, I'd have trouble adapting to every new situation, every new school, and every new person. I was rigid in my own routines. For most kids starting 7th grade, finding an image is no trouble. Most in junior high have no trouble seeing where they are on the social ladder. I just drifted around the playground, still trying to find my place. The worst was in the change room in gym class. We all go through the fate of being the kingpin at one school one moment, then being the grade 7, or minor niner as they say. When you're partly autistic, as I would later find out, the fate is multiplied 100-fold. My area was math problems on the calculator and in my mind, not finding identity in dating. My area is still numbers, not asking Jane Doe out on a date Friday night. But sadly, nobody knew what was causing me to be so odd. It was like you're dropped off in a foreign country and you don't know the language or how to deal with the normal customs of their land. This was junior high school for me, even though I did get some special help. One morning, some guys thought they'd be smart and yell all around me and swore all around me. Then they came back, and I was trapped in the change room with them scaring me and the light was off. I'd go to walk out to the gym all in the dark, and they'd turn on the light back on and say, "No, go back to your little hiding place." Then they'd shut out the light, repeat. One guy would stand at the switch, the other guy would be standing Lord knows where in the dark to freak me out. I'd be alone in the change room with the two guys who were doing this to me. I could hear them snicker and chuckle under their breaths. I was literally locked in the change room, locked in my own social isolation, in the dark, crying.